views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up on this edition of Perspectives, we go front and center with Congressman Jamaal Bowman. He goes front and center with us. He promised he would do a follow-up interview with us while he was running for office. And yes, he's kept his word. We're glad to have him. He's going to be talking about disaster preparedness in the wake of the storm, immigration. He also joins us talking his perspectives in just a few seconds. Stay with us. We begin right now.
What's on your mind? Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, just speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference in someone's life. Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective? Let them know.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime. We thank you for joining us. As always, you can watch Perspectives here on BronxNet Channel 67. We also invite you to stay connected to us on our social media platforms at BronxNet TV, and then always on our website at bronxnet.org. Now, if you're looking to catch me personally on our professional page, social media, Daren C. Jaime, Instagram and Twitter, DC Jaime 23. Want to get right at it. We are pleased to be joined now by Congressman Jamaal Bowman, who is the newly elected congressman for New York's 16th Congressional District. And yes, he's here before he was here as a candidate. He now returns to us elected and as a congressman, comes to us at a very critical time, particularly following the wake of the storm of yesterday that still wreaks havoc on the Bronx as well as Westchester County. Congressman Bowman, is always glad to have you. And again, thank you for being with us. And most of all, man, thank you for keeping your word and being with us today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, sometimes people are like, I'll be back. And the next thing you know, 3 years later. But no, it's only been months, and I'm glad certainly to have you. You come to us at a very critical time, especially following the wake of yesterday's storm where New York City is really reeling. The Bronx and particularly Westchester is your district. Give us an update as to how things are right now.
Yeah, things are terrible, quite frankly. We have over 20,000 people who have lost power. We have homes that were flooded so much that they are beyond disrepair. I was driving to the gym this morning and I saw cars literally abandoned on the highway, and I had never seen that before. For the first time in New York City's history, a flash flood emergency was designated. Think about that. First time in New York City's history, flash flood emergency. Also, Northeast Jersey, flash flood emergency designated. So right now, we've heard early reports of about 9 people dead, including a couple of children. So it's as bad as it can get. And it's another example of the fact that climate change is real, and we need to do a lot more to respond to it because we are behind the 8 ball as we speak.
I think when you talk about behind the 8 ball, one of the arguments that can be made is New York is always that place of resilience, right? We always know that New Yorkers are resilient. When we had Superstorm Sandy and that came through, that really took a lot of people by surprise because we never saw ourselves being that way. You hear about it in the Carolinas, you hear about what's going on in Louisiana, kind of almost expected. But when it hits New York, it almost becomes something of a different magnitude and something that for many of us, we really don't anticipate coming. But it does bring to light the question about disaster preparedness and how equipped we are to be able to deal with this. Now, looking at where we are today and looking at what the residents and constituents of your area are, how would you grade our preparedness and being ready for something like this?
Yeah, so the people are resilient and the people are prepared and ready to do the work to take action. But we need much more investment from our federal government in disaster preparedness, particularly in alignment with the issue of climate change. What has happened is that the climate is warming, and it has been warming at a rapid rate over the last several decades. As a result of that, we're going to have more consistent, more severe, and more unpredictable weather events, which is what we saw last night. And because it's going to be, those events are going to be more consistent, unpredictable, we need to make sure our physical infrastructure can withstand those weather events when they take place. So we don't see flooding on the Hutchinson River Parkway. So we don't see cars that are abandoned. So we don't see homes being completely flooded out. So the people are ready to respond. They're ready to get to work. They're ready to learn in terms of what they need to do so that they can respond accordingly. We need the investment, and we need to invest in climate emergencies so that we have the physical infrastructure and so that the people are prepared for the jobs that are going to be created as we focus more on this issue of climate change.
Speak to your constituents in the area right now who may be watching and really concerned about what's going on right now. Some of them are underwater, as we said, as we're on air right now. Many are still without power. Talk to your constituents, let them know exactly what's available and what services they can actually reach out to in a time such as this.
Absolutely. So we have been in touch with our constituents and elected officials in every part of our district ever since last night. So we are in close communication with everyone, sharing resources and feedback and water and whatever it is that is needed. After this interview, I'm actually going to be visiting different parts of the district. My team will be visiting different parts as well. So we're going to be in Pelham, in Mount Vernon, in Yonkers, in Mamaroneck, in Co-op City, just to check in and see what's going on. But we've already been in communication. We've already been on the ground, and we're going to continue to be on the ground throughout. So it's been hard, but what I have seen is elected officials in consistent communication coming together. And what we're going to be doing is calling on the federal government to dispatch FEMA resources here to the district, because Westchester County was pretty much the eye of the storm last night. And as a result, the Bronx and other parts of Northeast New Jersey were impacted pretty hard.
Yeah, we know that Westchester County, particularly New Rochelle, was the beginning place of COVID, and knowing that they had to first deal with that COVID crisis, and then now subsequently having to deal with being the brunt of the storm, to which most of New York City really got the after effects thereof. A lot is going to be needed to be able to get things really back on track. Talk to us about this, because as a congressman, you're a freshman, you're in there, just getting in and just getting started. How much did you have to really rely on other resources and really connectivity dealing with something like this, given it's your first time out the gate?
Yeah, so, my background is education. Before coming to Congress, I worked in education for 20 years. So you cannot serve the needs of your students and families and teachers without collaboration. So working in cooperation and collaboration with others to meet the needs of the people you serve, that's my background. That's what I've been doing for 20 years. So in Congress, it wasn't much different. And my fellow colleagues have been excellent in working with me. So from Senator Gillibrand to Senator Schumer, to Assembly Speaker Hasty, to Senator Jamal Bailey, to Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, to Mayor de Blasio, to Mayor Spano, to Mayor Sean Patterson Howard in Mount Vernon. The list goes on and on and on. So we have been in constant communication, cooperation, collaboration since I got into Congress. And what I've tried to lend is my expertise, particularly in the areas of education and mental health. As you think about, you mentioned New Rochelle being hit initially by COVID and now being hit with this tornado yesterday, in addition to surrounding areas, we are all experiencing a mental health crisis. And sometimes because we're so focused on, getting up and getting to work and taking care of our family and doing this and doing that, we don't even take time to stop and breathe and reflect and just relax and tune into our mental health. So that is something that has to be a critical first step, and that has to be at the top of the agenda, our mental health. Because without our mental health, it doesn't matter how much money is invested, it doesn't matter what infrastructure is put in place. And because if we can't take care of ourselves, we won't be able to take care of our families and our communities. So I bring the collaborative experience and the education and mental health experience, and that's something I try to share with my colleagues as we do this work.
Yeah. And congratulations to you. I know that you're on the Education and Labor Committee, as well as Science and Technology. So they've given you that. So you got some work ahead of you there. When you talk about education, obviously that's at the backbone of what you do. You were an educator. Talk to us about it again right now. We're talking about kids going back to school and still a lot of angst. You got the Delta variant out there, kids getting ready to go back. You got teachers, you got parents who are on the front lines, very, very concerned. What do you want to share with us with regards to the return back to school?
In order to keep kids and teachers safe, we have to be creative in our approach to reopening our schools. I understand the need to bring all of the kids back at the same time, but we have to also deal with the reality that there are many parts of our community where we have high COVID infection rates and low vaccination rates. And in those circumstances, you're going to have kids under 12 who aren't vaccinated going into class sizes as high as 30 kids, maybe even more. And that's just a recipe for additional outbreaks of the Delta variant, which targets kids a bit more. So I understand the need to open fully because kids need to be in front of a teacher, but there have been parents that have requested a remote option. I support that. I think we should support that as educators. In addition to homeschool options and homeschool networks, we have to be creative. We have to give kids formal education opportunities outside of the classroom. You have the classroom, but parks are learning spaces, museums are learning spaces, libraries are learning spaces. Someone's home is a learning space, and we need to make sure our policies and our resources are aligned to the unprecedented challenges that COVID it continues to present, especially with concerns to the Delta variant. So that's where we are. That's where I support, and that's why and how I've been working with school districts and school education leaders across the state to implement programs like this.
A little concerned. I mean, given the fact that we knew that New York City was only supposed to open after we got 70% vaccination rate, but boots on the ground, and people say, listen, we don't believe that 70% of New Yorkers are actually vaccinated, but yet and still school continues to open. I'll let you speak to that. But then also I'll add in the other caveat in all this. We're talking about this storm and people still being able to respond back with no power and still electricity, school getting ready to get started. We talk about that virtual environment and kids being able to learn in school. But there's going to be, even for those who are in that virtual environment, looking at the storm right now, some challenges, because if you thought that you had internet before, a lot of people are going to be without power. A lot of people are really going to get back. Is there any discussion as to how we're going to navigate this with this added challenge that we've had with the storm in place?
Yeah, now that we've seen the impact of the storm, those discussions are just beginning. And we've already seen school districts like the Yonkers School District, for example. It was supposed to open tomorrow. That's been pushed back to September 9th. So those discussions have already begun. And my point around creativity is being agile as well, because things are changing so rapidly on a day-to-day basis regarding the Delta variant, the storm, and many other issues. So the need for mutual aid networks here is going to be key. The federal government we will hopefully do what we need to do in terms of passing this reconciliation package. That's going to be huge, because that's going to infuse the finances that we need to make sure we have childcare infrastructure in place, 3K infrastructure in place, home care in place, environmental justice response in place. So this is a whole of government approach. It starts with the federal, comes down to the state and local levels, while also working with the grassroots to build those mutual aid networks in a way that provides support and holistic support around our families and children who are most vulnerable during this time.
Yeah. Let me take a quick break and come back more with Congressman Jamaal Bowman. Got a few more minutes here on Perspectives. We'll be right back right after this. Back here on Perspectives, Congressman Jamaal Bowman, our guest here, and we are glad to have him sharing with us. Congressman, before we let you go, have to address the issue of immigration. Pretty huge. We talk about immigration reform. and how it's really affecting so many New Yorkers, given the fact that we have this, we're still in COVID-19, a lot of challenges in the area of immigration. Talk to us about what you see and what you see happening.
Well, first of all, big shout out to New York State for creating the Excluded Workers Fund, which specifically targets the immigrant community that worked for us as frontline workers throughout the pandemic. And it provides them with pay, with hazard pay for the work they did on our behalf. So shout out to New York State for being a true progressive leader in that area. You know, we've been fighting at a federal level for immigration reform for several decades in a pathway to citizenship. My fingers are crossed because we are hoping and very optimistic that a pathway to citizenship will be a part of the reconciliation package. There's still a few hurdles to jump across and jump over, but it seems like the conversations are leading in that direction, and that will create a pathway to citizenship for TPS holders, DACA recipients, and others to the tune of 8 million people becoming citizens in our country within a certain amount of time. We didn't get all of the 11 million, but 8 million will be key. And the last thing I want to say on that point is we need more humanitarian support at the border. Right now, we have invested and continue to invest in detaining and prosecutorial behavior of those who come across the border, but we don't have enough care and human rights support at the border. I visited the border, Laredo, Texas, about a month ago, a little over a month ago, and I met with members of law enforcement, and I met with Catholic Charities and others providing humanitarian aid, and it was night and day in terms of the resources we put towards security and detainment, and we put so very little towards the humanitarian effort. Now, do we want to stop drugs and crime and guns from coming into the country? Absolutely. But what I heard from Border Patrol is that over 90% of the people they detain are not criminals at all. They're just people seeking asylum in our country. So we need to do a lot better with that system. I'm glad that FEMA is more present there now, but we need to do a lot more there. So we're moving in the right direction. 8 million as part of reconciliation will be huge. And finally, hopefully, we can evolve into the multiracial democracy that we are. And one last thing I want to mention about this, we cannot forget our Caribbean brothers and sisters who are immigrants coming into the country, because for whatever reason, and I think you and I know what the reasons are, they're disproportionately detained and marginalized and not allowed to become part of the American fabric. So we got to do a lot more for our Caribbean brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters from Haiti, from Jamaica, and all across the Caribbean.
Congressman Jamaal Bowman, thank you so much for being with us. I know you've got a busy schedule. As a matter of fact, as soon as you leave, as you said, you're going out to visit residents and constituents in your area. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us. Of course, we're looking forward to seeing you soon, and you can be able to share more of your perspective, but grateful for the time that you have here. Stay safe and be encouraged. Listen, we got to take a quick break here on Perspectives. We'll be back with more show coming up after this. And we are back here on Perspectives. Daren Jaime here with you, and we're so glad to have Congressman Jamaal Bowman sharing with us a little bit about the disaster relief that is going on in the wake of the tornado storm that's impacted so many people across the Bronx and Westchester County. Just a quick note, as we look at New York City, a couple of things are highlighted. The Congressman and I talked about it. One thing is for certain, New Yorkers are prepared, but really aren't prepared when it comes to the issue of disasters. We've seen a fair share of challenges with snow. We've seen a fair share of challenges with rain and heavy water, but not to this magnitude. The first time ever that really we were called in for really the flooding of the magnitude that we've seen. What does that mean for us here in New York? It means that we do have to adopt a better perspective on how to deal with disaster relief. For people who say that climate change isn't real, look again. When we look around and we see what happened over the course of Bronx, New York City, Westchester County, a lot of people underwater as we speak, a lot of people still without power. It's indicative of where we are today as a culture and also as a nation. For our elected officials, it's a time for us to really take a look at climate change. It's a time for us to really take a strong look at our disaster relief, particularly here in New York City. When New York City, the mecca of the United States, goes down underwater in power and we don't have the necessary resources to really deal, it's a time for us to revisit some things. So our hope is that a lot of elected officials and community will put the pressure on those persons responsible for making sure that we have the exact resources able to be able to deal with that. Now, again, if you're watching the show right now and you're dealing with the whole issue of a power outage, if you're dealing with flooding, if you're dealing with needing resources, if you're in the New York City area, don't forget to call 311. Also, if you're in the congressman's district, or in what we'll say for Congressman Bowman, particularly in the 16th congressional district, don't forget to reach out at bowman.house.gov. There you'll be able to reach out and get the necessary resources that you need. If not, contact your local elected officials from the Congress all the way down to the Assembly and even your city council representatives. They are available to actually help you to be able to navigate through this. You don't have to navigate by yourself. There's some resources available. Get connected with your local elected officials as well as your community-based organizations. They're going to be the arm to be able to help you to navigate through this time. Some of us have never seen this happen before. It's unprecedented. But even though it's unprecedented, there are some things that we've been prepared to deal with. You're just going to have to reach out, and hopefully we'll be able to see more people be able to recover. So our thoughts and prayers go out to all of those who have been adversely affected. Also, looking at what's in the news right now, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul is no longer the lieutenant governor, but she is the governor, replacing New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo, who resigned amidst charges of sexual harassment in the workplace. The questions are, how is Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, who is now the governor, we'll say Governor Hochul, be able to govern New York, particularly in this time? She's promised transparency of government. She's promised about restoring government back to the people. It's a lot of work on the governor's plate right now, particularly dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and also the emergence of kids going back to school. How are we going to deal with the Delta variant? Now, Governor Hochul has said she wants to make sure that all students follow a mask mandate, but a mask mandate is simply not enough. We need to make sure that more people are getting vaccinated, more people are getting more information with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic and this Delta variant. There are available places if you're seeking a vaccination. Now, originally, Governor Cuomo said he would not open up New York City or make New York City open if it wasn't until 70% of New Yorkers are vaccinated. But we're talking with those in the health profession, those who are talking with elected officials, even though the 70% threshold was there, a lot of people still have questions. It doesn't seem as though the 70% has actually gotten there. So if you're still looking to get vaccinated, there are places that can be able to help you. If you need help in navigating with PPE supplies, and other things of that nature, there are many community-based organizations as well as our elected officials who have boots on the ground. We're ready to help you so that way you can get the necessary PPE supplies. Our thoughts and prayers really go back to our students who are going back to school, but not just the students who are going back to school, but for educators as well, who have to deal with students who don't fall in that vaccinated category. Remember, 12 and under, 16 and under, not really getting the vaccination, not allowed to have the vaccination yet. They're our most vulnerable population. So we're praying for our teachers, we're praying for our educators, and those who are really going back to school. We're hoping that this back to school effort will be better, and a lot of our kids will be able to stay safe. Something else that we touched on upon the school about in the interview with Congressman Bowman was the fact about how students are actually prepared with technology, having Apple resources, meaning Wi-Fi, meaning computers, iPads. If you're a student and you're in the virtual learning space, you're a parent that's in the virtual learning space, please take the time out to reach to your educators and reach out to those persons to make sure that your students are armed for the best possible way for this upcoming year. The virtual environment is good, but you have to also have the necessary elements in order to be able to succeed. Not having good internet, not having a strong enough computer, not having a strong enough bandwidth. These are things that a lot of our parents and students are actually dealing with. Coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, we interviewed parents, students, and those who are in the educational arena. And this is what we heard. Yes, students were able to go back to school. Yes, through a virtual environment. Yes, some even had the necessary things, but laptops and Wi-Fi were kind of sometimes spotty and shaky. Hopefully, if you're having that issue, you can reach out to your school, you can reach out to your elected official or a community-based organization to be able to help you to have all that your child needs to be able to succeed. Don't hesitate to ask questions. The dumbest question, as they say, is a question that never really got answered. Also, on here on Perspectives, we'll be taking a look as we get closer to November. We know that we will be seeing a new borough president take office. Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. opting not to seek re-election, term ending, and yet and still, the election that we saw Council Member Vanessa Gibson with the most votes defeating Fernando Cabrera, also a council person. It is believed in the Bronx it's a highly democratic borough. The council member Gibson will be the new Bronx Borough president. So stay tuned to us here on Perspectives as we aim to have her on the show, sharing her vision for the Bronx and also for the upcoming new year. A lot of things happening. We're getting set for a new season here at Perspectives. We're excited that we're able to bring you the newsmakers. We're able to talk about the topics. And we're able to go in depth with a lot of things. I want to thank our staff, our producer, Curlew Burton, our line producer, Lindsay Villat, for her work and Curlew's work in helping us to bring a safe and healthy show every week. And when I say safe, I mean from the perspective of, listen, the information that's out there, we want to make sure that content is good. They help us to get the content out there and get it to you. And I'm a part of a team. And so I don't just work by myself. I'm the front man, but I got two great people who are working with us to bring the show closer to you. We want you to stay connected to us throughout the course of Perspectives in the upcoming weeks. We got a lot of show, a lot of things to talk about. And of course, I will be sharing my perspective a little bit more with you so that you can get to know what Daren thinks. People ask us, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Well, don't hesitate to know. We're going to be bringing that to you so you'll know what my perspective is. I shared a few of them here today. We're about out of show. We're going to take a quick break before we wrap, get a couple of commercials in or PSAs, and then I'll come back and give you one more final thought before we wrap up. We'll see you in a few. Well, we are out of time. I am Daren Jaime saying thank you for watching Perspectives. Be sure to share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference in somebody else's life.
Bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, just speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light, cause it might make a difference in someone else's.